Hi guys, and welcome to my second video about Bitcoin facts and fiction. What I'm gonna talk about is the problems. So in the previous video, I've addressed the benefits, the technical benefits, and the moral benefits, what the advocates would always talk about or claim for about Bitcoin. Now it's time to talk about the problems. Now, there's a Chinese proverb which is muddy waters make it easy to catch fish. And the reason I'm using this proverb is because I see that Bitcoin and the vast majority of the cryptocurrencies and crypto space is actually in muddy water. It tries to lure people to come in where advocates would be over promising but under delivering, and some of these small fish that would join this cryptocurrency space will be eaten by whales or by crocodiles, since it is actually a muddy water. The first problem, sorry for that, the first problem which I'm going to address is the speed that Bitcoin has. Basically, the Bitcoin blockchain is extremely slow. The transaction rate is somewhere between 2 to 7 transactions per second. Now, you could conclude this from Satoshi's white paper, or basically you could look at some of the charts available today in the industry. Something like blockchain.com, they have multiple network activity charts. One of them is transaction rate per second. So I'm shooting this video in the 24th of January 2021. So if let's see the last 30 days. Last 30 days, this is the transactions per second speed or duration. So let's say in the 19th of January, it was 5.75. Kind of yesterday, around 3 transactions per second. At the 1st of January, below 2 transactions per second. So the average, I would say, maybe could be 3 to 3.5 transactions per second. If you look at, let's say, the all time that blockchain.com was maintaining, you can see actually how this could fluctuate. So transactions per second is not constant due to multiple reasons. I'm not going to get into, which is basically how many transactions you could have on the same block, depending of course on how many people are trading and the transaction fees and so on. But regardless, so you could see maybe at its best, um, we had more than 7 transactions per second, and sometimes that was just little higher than 1 transaction per second in some days. I can't point this out. Maybe somewhere around November or in November 2017. So this is the average transactions per second. Now the question would be, okay, what does it mean? Let's visualize it. And I'm not gonna get into how much Visa and Mastercard do and all of that. Like Visa, they claim that on the holidays they were able to transact 64,000 transactions per second. Mastercard maybe 32 or something. Regardless, I'm gonna focus on Bitcoin. So if we take the average transactions per second as 3.5, let's say we have a population of 8 billion people. Today, this is what we have. Now, no, of course, not all of these people, they would use money to transact or store values to transact. Uh, but I want to show you, just in case for whatever reason, I don't see this coming, but just mathematically, what does this mean if at some point people start to use, or wanted to use Bitcoin as a global money or a global a store of value? Uh, and let's say that we have a population of 8 billion people. Now, we could have a population of maybe 16 billion people one day, and only half of them are actually using Bitcoin. But what does this mean? So if we do some mathematical calculation, and basically here we divide the if we multiply 8 billion by one transaction, so that actually give us 8 billion transactions. So for 8 billion transactions on a speed of 3.5 transactions per second, how many seconds we need in order to conduct all these transactions? that that's a very big number. We divide this by 60 to get the minutes. We can divide this by 60 to get the hours. We divide this by 24 to get the number of days. And then if we divide this by 365.25, because we have the leap day of every 40 years. So we need 72.4 years to conduct the transactions for 8 billion people, and each one of them is doing one transaction. Now, if we say, let's say, okay, we have 1 billion people adopted Bitcoin, right? If each single one does only one transaction, we need 9 years. We need 9 years to conduct this. And of course, like when you buy Bitcoin, you're buying it to use it, either to sell it later on a higher price, or to use it as an asset, or pay with it, or maybe give it to multiple people depending on the services that you're receiving. So if these 8 billion people, each of them conducted 8 transactions, you get to the same number of years initially I showed you, which is 72 years. You need 72 years to conduct this. And this is a major issue. And when Bitcoin started, in the early days, and people started to advocate for it, it's going to be the global money, global monetary system, borderless. All that fiat and paper money is going to go away. Even gold is at risk. Gold might even get away. So there were a lot of delusion actually is happening and taking place. And at some point, that Bitcoin community started to realize that, oh no, we have a problem. So they came up with the Lightning Network. So, and by the way, Lightning Network, with this project, that it doesn't necessarily carry only Bitcoin. It can carry other cryptocurrencies, like Litecoin today can actually be run on the Lightning Network. So they said, okay, in order to make it a global money, let's come up with this concept of Lightning Network. And I'll explain very briefly what the Lightning Network is. And I'm going to show you that Lightning Network will not solve the problem. It could even make it worse, actually, worse than that. So Lightning Network is, if you have two individuals, let's say, actually you could have more than two on the Lightning Network, but I'm going to start with two for simplicity. If you have person A and person B, they want to exchange Bitcoins, and they want to do that frequently. They would say, okay, instead of every time we do this on the main chain, the main blockchain of Bitcoin, and pay expensive transaction fees, let's try to do it off chain, on a kind of an overlay network, where we can have this transactions, and then at some point when we decide to terminate that payment channel, we can settle this payment on the main blockchain. So it starts as follows. So you have these entity A and entity B. They want to exchange Bitcoin. So what they do first is funding. They fund this payment channel. Of course, I'm assuming here that the payment channel has been created, or even there's the concept of having a routed payment channel through different entities. I'll come to that a little bit later. But the first thing that they need to do, they need to fund it, right? And then they need, of course, they determine the time frame. They would say, okay, until when we're going to have this payment channel open, we need to settle it, we need to close this payment channel at some point, so everybody would take his money eventually. So this is what we call the settlement. So there's a settlement transaction also that has to be done on the main blockchain. So the first one is funding, the second one is settlement. And if you look into it, that if really you want the world to start using a Lightning Network and monetary system, it means that the world, every individual at the very beginning, he entered that Bitcoin realm or a cryptocurrency. So there's a first entry that you would see here that has to be done. So there's a first. So now we have three transactions at minimum has to be done, and of course, when you transact Bitcoin for a certain service, you receive Bitcoin for that server or something that you sell. You need to use it, right? So why people are buying Bitcoin? Because they want to sell it later on, or they want to exchange services or liquidate it, at some point. So this is what I call the exit. If someone wants to exit and liquidate that to other asset, or he wants to transact it or send that fractions of Bitcoin or a Bitcoin, an entire Bitcoin, to someone else for his services. So this is actually there's at minimum four transactions has to be done on the main blockchain of Bitcoin for every payment channel. Now, if we also like kind of contemplated a little bit here and try to think, what does this mean? So let's say I want to buy from a grocery store, okay? So I need a payment channel. I need like to cut my hair at at a barber shop. So this is another payment channel. I want to go to restaurant A, that's a payment channel. Restaurant B, another payment channel. I want to receive my salary, that's another payment channel, and so on. So something good that in the Lightning Network that they came with, and actually, of course, taken from the basics of networks, which is basically the concept of routing. So they said, okay, what we can do is for myself, Muhammad, if I want to pay restaurant C and I don't have a payment channel with him, my payment can go through, for example, restaurant A, and then restaurant A. There's a payment channel between restaurant A and restaurant W, and then between restaurant W and restaurant C, which I want to pay and I'm at. There's a payment channel. So that payment could be routed through a different routing channel until it receives and gets established and settled eventually and terminated with restaurant C. And of course, there's always that concept of the time lock, for how long you want to keep that agreement of payment is happening between two parties. But if you think about it, if I have this scenario, let's say if I travel to a different country I've never visited before, I don't have any friends that visited before, I might still need to create a payment channel with them. If not, it means that the world has adopted this concept massively, where I can still find a route, or the application that I'm using, or the service that payment service that I'm using was able to successfully to find a route between me and that and the counterpart that actually I am paying. So the concept of routing will only become viable and feasible when you have a massive adoption. And the question is, are we going to get there or not? I mean, with these numbers and with this slowness that we have today, and a lot of issues that actually is happening, nevertheless, that also the Lightning Network uses Onion protocols, and Onion Network or the Onion protocols are actually legally forbidden in a lot of countries, because this is where the dark web, or Tor, if you heard of Tor, and the dark web, where people would exchange illegal goods and services, just like the Silk Road. That site actually was running on the dark web on the Tor network using Onion protocols. So in order for the Lightning Network to run and kind of established, we need to make sure, or the world has to make sure that actually is being, allowed. Now, of course, if we reach at this point somewhere, maybe we will have lightning networks on legitimate networks like the internet, uh, where everything is centralized. I'm just kidding, but this is where everybody doesn't like to hear, when they talk about decentralization and so on. So from feasibility perspective, that's I don't see it there. Now, there were, by the way, some attempts that happened in the past. Even the size of the block that is part of the blockchain was smaller and was able to carry less transactions earlier in the past. And then this is where the community they need to achieve consensus around that, and they were able to do that at some point. They said, okay, let's increase the size of the block to almost 1 meg so we could carry more transactions. Of course, some people didn't want that because this would mean less transaction fees to them. They want more profit, they want higher transaction fees. And also then later, and this is where I'll talk about forks and forking. This were Bitcoin Cash actually, and part of the communities they said 1 meg is nothing. Why don't we make it 8 meg instead? So there were split in decision between the miners, and this is where the hard fork, sorry, they would call it hard fork happen. And when this happened, it means that you have a completely different cryptocurrency, even if you still have some of the attributes and the rules of the original one, which is Bitcoin. But this is actually forking, and I'll come to this, and I'm going to show you how many forks exist from Bitcoin are actually testimonies for the issue. The forks are testimonial for the issue that we have with Bitcoin, and this is why Bitcoin will never make it as a global monetary system or store of value. Now, also, if you kind of think about it a little bit more, okay, what does it mean? Uh, or if you think, what is the number of people that can only adopt that and keep the network running? And you can do some simple math here, where you could say, let's say if we have, instead of 1 billion, let's say we have 1 million, 1 million people, they wanted to transact Bitcoin at the same time or the same time frame, which is here 3.3 days. So within 3.3 days, if you have 1 million transaction, 1 million transaction, this is how much it needs. If you have more than that, if you have, let's say, 1 million people, they want to conduct, each of them, they want to conduct 3 transactions. For that to happen between this, or for the benefit of this 1 million people, you need 9.9 days in order to settle this. So this is a basically major problem, and this is why I see Bitcoin without dramatic changes will never become a global monetary system. It will never become a store of value. And even if you think about it, it's going to be a store of value for very small subset. And these people are in this space just because they want to sell their Bitcoin in a higher price, just similar to the Tulip, but I call it digital Tulip, not digital gold. This is digital Tulip or e-Tulip, not e-cash, it's e-Tulip. Uh, I'll come to this later on. Okay, what other issues we have? Actually, I've listed. I drafted on a scratch of paper more than 20 issues. I'm trying here to show you some of them. Another issue is the mining and proof of work. Now, mining and proof of work, I spoke about it in the benefits. I said why it's good, but at the same time, it is an issue. It's an issue. It's not. It's good in terms of confirming and validating the transaction and all of that, but it's bad from different perspectives. It is bad because of the high power consumption. Let me show you this. Let me show you this. especially if you're new to this space. You know. This is from digeconomist.net. So what's the annual total footprints from in terms of carbon footprint? This is equivalent to New Zealand. So today, the miners that actually is powering up that Bitcoin blockchain, they're creating carbon footprint more than what New Zealand does, or maybe equivalent to that. When it comes to the electric energy is being consumed, it's something equivalent to Chile. Electronic waste, sorry, electronic waste similar to Luxembourg, like, because you have these mining devices every now and then, maybe you need to change them, they become obsolete, you need something more powerful in order to keep competing with the rest of the miners. So you would throw part of that hardware every now and then, and it goes end of life and end of support. So you have to throw it. So in a single transaction for Bitcoin, that's the average. Kind of a single transaction consumes something equivalent to 654,000 Visa transaction, or almost 50,000 hours of watching YouTube. That's almost the same equivalent. Or from an energy perspective, electrical energy, this is basically it's equivalent to powering an average U.S. household in the U.S., in the United States of America, for 21 days. And here you would think, okay, why we're doing this as a community? At the very beginning, I spoke about the moral aspects, and that Bitcoin came here to help us from the monopoly of the governments and all of that. And we want to give power to the people and save the people and help the people. On the other side, I mean, if you look what's happening with the world and the global warming, and you have houses, thousands and millions of houses, and today on planet Earth, people they cannot afford electricity, or they don't have the electricity. So we're overcomplicating things that we don't need to. We can still do the mining, so we can still have blockchain running and Bitcoin running with much less energy. Why? Because if you have less miners, they can still mine a block every 10 minutes almost, and get the reward, and split it among them. And this is what in the early stages, this is what Satoshi Nakamoto and the cyberpunk team, they were mining with their devices, with their laptops. You could even nowadays with with the mobile devices that we have, if the complexity of the network is kind of reduced dramatically, you could mine on your device, on your iPhone or Samsung, whatever device, or Huawei, whatever device you have today. So on your mobile device. So basically, we're creating an unnecessary problem just because the miners, they are greedy. They want to compete on that Bitcoin, and because that Bitcoin price is going up. So we're creating an environmental unfriendly space for 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 what? I mean, we can reduce this much less, and we can be more efficient. So unnecessary mining or hashing power complexity is being added. Another problem, as I said, forking, this is a testimonial to the Bitcoin problem and issues. The reason that we started to have forking and forks is that because Bitcoin is a kind of obsolete technology. It has a lot of issues, a lot of limitations. So this is where part of the community, the Bitcoin community, they started to say, no, we should modify this and this and that. And some of them, they would say, no, we don't agree, so they would fork. Or some of them, they would say, we should modify this, and I am forking. I'm gonna go fork. I'm going to create my own fork. It's fork. It's not something else. This is a family friendly video. So I'm gonna create my own fork for my own personal benefits. By the way, you could go to unhash.com there's a beautiful diagram on the Bitcoin blockchain and software forks. Here you could see the forks for Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash was a fork in, I think it was forked in 1st of August 2017. Sometimes you would see a fork of a fork of a fork, like here, like for example with Dodge coin, it's a fork of a fork of a fork of a fork. So this is actually a testimonial that the community would split, and they split for different reasons. Uh, Part of the reason could be technical, and maybe a part of the community would say, okay, Bitcoin is not able to scale. There's a lot of problems with that. So they come up with a proposal. Another portion of the community would refuse that proposal. So there will be a split, like with the Bitcoin Cash, where the block size is now 8 meg compared to almost 1 meg, a little bit higher in the Bitcoin, sometimes a little bit less, regardless. Now, also sometimes you would see the fork for personal benefits, or for for monetary benefits, where if you create a fork, you would actually keep the tokens, let's say the bitcoins that you have, but you will also be rewarded with new coins from the forked coin, or from the forked blockchain. So for example, one Bitcoin Cash was forked. So let's say if someone he has like 50 bitcoins, then also he would have a 50 Bitcoin Cash. Also, there's other advantages that I would see, maybe when it comes to mining. So if you fork, you would start mining this new cryptocurrency, and you would be one of the early miners. So you will get the rewards. You will get most of the rewards, if not all the rewards. And then when you have more cryptocurrency, more coins, then actually you will be ahead from the rest of the later joiners. So you could become richer. So this split actually could be purely for lucrative reasons. Uh, some of the forks, for example, like Zcash, it was for privacy. So part of the community, they said, we need more privacy about the identity of the user and the wallet. We need more privacy on that blockchain. We want to make it a private blockchain. So they forked actually, and they create their own blockchain for that. For now, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification button, and see you in the next video.